Matthew Hunt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me, man. Really excited to talk to you. You are the youngest guest by far on the podcast, but you're super sharp. You remind me a lot of myself at your age, and so I got a little soft spot for you.
Yeah.
Why don't you give the people a quick introduction for those who are not aware of you?
So I first got into politics, I'd say around ninth grade. I mean, before that, I'd always, kept up with current events and stuff like that. But around ninth grade, I really started to develop an interest, mainly because of my history class at the time. We started getting into, the branches of government and, the early American history and like the Constitution. And I think that definitely sparked an interest. So outside of school, I would do as much research as I can into politics, economics, law, anything of that sort. And I remember watching a show on Netflix called The Night Agent, and I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but it has to do with like a conspiracy around the White House and stuff. And I kind of remember watching that show, and something clicked with me. I kind of realized that politics is my calling. Um, so, and then after that, I started, watching other shows like The West Wing, House of Cards, Designated Survivor, and I think it reinforced my passion for it. So, but right now, I mean, I don't have a podcast or anything or a blog. I just, post on Twitter. So,
Many such cases, many such cases. So no, that's cool, man. Like I'm happy to see that you're interested in it. What grips you about politics, man? Because I
um,
view politics and I recoil, I cringe viscerally. I pay attention to politics, as I've said many times on the show. The way you pay attention to like a predator around your camp, like a
yeah,
grizzly bear
yeah,
in your vicinity that might get you, right? So I view politics as dangerous, therefore I need to keep tabs on it, but I hate the fact that I have to keep tabs on it. So what about it
yeah.
grips you?
Um, I mean, I've always kind of been into history, and I think there's something fascinating about seeing how politics and government evolves over time. And I think that if you decide to go into politics and do the right thing, you're in a unique position and to make a difference. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people they don't use that opportunity to make a difference for the good. And I think what grips me about it is being able to look up for the little guy, being able to have that opportunity.
Do you think there's some information in there? The fact
What was
that do you think there's some information buried in there in that situation? The fact that people don't go into politics to do good, like almost never, right? Like, and
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm asking, like, you think there might be something to that?
Yeah, I mean, with what we're seeing now, I mean, we've seen it for a very long time, and political corruption is not, a new thing. I mean, it's been around since, Athens and Rome. So, but I think there's a lot of stuff we don't know, obviously, but I think a lot of people get into it with very high expectations, and whenever they get, like, for example, if you get elected to Congress, you probably go into it with high expectations, and then you kind of see how it really works, and I think it can corrupt you. And then obviously I think there's also people that were they were put there by higher ups for a reason. So I think those are the two main ways that political corruption happens. Every once in a while you get some a good egg, and I think Thomas Massey is a great example of a good egg in politics.
Well, you will not get a disagreement out of me. I absolutely adore Thomas Massey with respect to government officials. Like I've got disdain for all of them, and I do have my criticisms I've leveled against Thomas Massey, which
Yeah,
he would probably agree with.
yeah,
Um, but I agree. Like you can do that, and he's actually said too. Like he sees all these people that come in with all these good intentions and instantly get corrupted by the way the system is. And so the question I have for you, I sort of gave you a couple of potential reading suggestions. Have you ever read Lord of the Rings?
No, I have not.
Have you ever watched the movies?
Years ago, but not recently. So I
Are you
wouldn't be able to
familiar
tell
with
you
the
anything about it.
concept? Are you familiar with the concept of the Ring of Power?
I am familiar with I think I'm familiar with the concept that it's you know a ring completely evil, and the story kind of shows how it can corrupt. So
Not how it can corrupt. It is
how it
absolutely
yes
corrupting of everyone. And what I love
yes
about the metaphor is that no human can wield it. That's what Tolkien was trying
yeah
to relay. Is like that power over another human being of life and death to legally be able to murder your fellow man for peaceful activities. That is a power that is too great for anyone to wield. That's why a hobbit had to carry it, right?
yeah
And this hobbit wasn't even human, and it literally almost completely destroyed, Frodo on the way. And it actually took Samwise Gamgee to carry him to the last steps of Mount Doom. When you really need to throw it into Mount Doom and destroy it, like everybody stops. Right, there's that scene in the original movie. I can't remember which guy it was, but he fought the battle against Sauron. He obtained the ring. He went to Mount Doom, and one of the guys, I think Aragorn, was screaming at him, "Throw it in the fire, cast it in the fire." And he turned around and he said, "No." Like there's
yeah
this hesitancy, like you won't destroy it. And I think that's what I sense in you with respect to government. Like I think that you have got this idea about government. You can fix it somehow. Like there's a way that ring is not going to corrupt you, right? And I think Tolkien did a
yeah
great job of showing like all of these different characters, including Gandalf and including the elves, and like the everyone's like, I can handle it, and nobody can handle it.
yeah. I I think I think with respect to government, I don't know if I would classify it in the same sense as the ring. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Um, I mean, it's very clear that government has screwed over a lot of people. It does a lot of bad, and it's a shame. But I don't necessarily think that government as a concept or even an institution is evil no matter what. There's no changing. I do believe that we can change it. And I do believe that good can come from it.
So let me ask a fundamental question. You made my ears prick up a little bit when you started using the good and evil terminology. So what definitions do you work with when you say the government's not evil? So what do you define as evil?
I think what I would define as evil has to do with God. I believe that the Bible gives us a good basis for what is good and what is evil. Stuff like the Ten Commandments, bad morals, say that's evil. Um, but I think government, I don't think it's inherently evil because I think it depends on who is wielding the power. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let me return to our offline conversation, or actually, I think
Yep.
it was a post on Twitter, which was where I think you had admitted, like, okay, well, the government's evil, the Constitution is evil, because it claims to authorize evil actions. Like even if you're coming from, and I think you can get here both ways. From a religious tradition, you can say, okay, humans have inalienable rights granted by their creator, or you can say this is just part of my humanity. Like you can reason from first principles. If you're familiar with first principles, that I have ownership in my body, I have property in my body, and nobody else has a higher claim on my body than I do. Right? Like that should be like the base level for things. And so if you believe that, right, and I think that's fairly not controversial, that things like you mentioned, like things like stealing, things like assault, things like murder, these things should be completely verboten. Like there's a hard, bright no-go line. And with government, it can't be good because anything that government does first starts with a violation of someone's rights. It's a moral violation to steal from other people. So anything it can do, right? Like, I don't care what your best intention is. It first starts with a violation of ethical. It's an ethical violation based on stealing to even do anything with respect to government. Tell me where I'm wrong.
So, would you say that it's an ethical violation for the government to, um, for example, arrest a murderer or
100%.
bring? Why can you like rephrase it?
Well, yeah, it's very
Why?
simple. You're not tracing it far enough back, right? So, in order to arrest a murderer, which is the action that you're trying to focus on, what actions have to predate that?
If you're trying to arrest them, you mean?
Yeah. There's somebody who's committed a murder, and then there's obviously going to be a police officer or multiple police officers is involved. So what predates that? What happens before you get to that point of arresting somebody for murder?
The investigation.
Okay, the investigation, sure. What else?
Um,
Are these police officers working for free?
no.
Are there police cars and their equipment and their radios and their uniforms and their weapons and their ammunition and the jail and the entire industrial complex that's around prison systems? Like, is that free?
No.
Cool. Where does all that come from?
Comes from the taxpayers.
It comes from stealing. There was somebody way at the beginning of that chain. This people don't like to think about this, but there's always a gun pointed at somebody. There's always your money or your life. That's where it starts. And then once we've collected the money, then they start doing things. And people typically like to focus on, well, is this action that they performed with these stolen funds, is that good or bad? And that's how we should judge things. And I'm like, hey, if you trace it all the way back, you're starting with evil. And there's no way to get around it, which is why I classify government as evil no matter what they do. And I don't see a way logically to get around that. And I've been asking people for a long time, prove me wrong, show me where the holes in my logic are, and I don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I very much understand where you're coming from. I mean, it's a very, very tricky question. And, our conversation yesterday or the day before or whatever, it definitely gave me a new perspective on it. Um, I mean, it is very difficult to get around the stealing thing. I think that maybe out there that there's a possibility. I would love to find a solution to taxes. Right now, I don't have that answer, but I just um, I can't dismiss what it can be used for. And I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I can't dismiss that we can provide the common defense of the nation, that we can you know defend people's rights, and obviously government has a bad track record at that. But I don't think that even if we did not have a government in place, if we were in a stateless society, an anarchy, I don't think that we're going to be void of those issues either way. So
Void of which issues in particular?
murder, theft,
For sure.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
And I don't think anybody on the voluntarist side is making that claim. And this is what I really hate about these discussions: is oftentimes there's so much straw manning back and forth, and I hate that. I like to steel man people's position. But the straw man argument is, oh, you're saying this is going to be utopia. If you end government, like, the world's going to be perfect and the free market's going to solve all your problems. And I'm like, hey man, no. But people are nothing but problems.
yeah.
Straight up. Like we have nothing but problems. There's going to be the same psychopaths that are going to be doing the same types of things. The claim is, like, number one, this is an ethical way to organize society. Like, if we don't accept this premise that there's a special group of superhumans called government that get extra rights that you and I don't have and can actually legally murder you, that's an ethical outcome, and we should be having that as our standard, right? Because if these rights actually come from government, then, or sorry, actually come from God, or by virtue of your humanity, they shouldn't be transgressed no matter what, even for good ends. So, one thought experiment I like to do is, okay, let's say, for example, the government wrote a law that said uh, couples who are infertile, have difficulty conceiving. Um, let's say that the wife has got PCOS and can't naturally conceive. The government says, well, the husband of this wife can rape the wife of somebody else uh, because they need a child, right? We need to provide a child for this family. What's the difference between that and something like stealing money? And by the way, stealing money that could escalate to murder. Like if I refuse to turn over my money, the government will literally murder me for doing nothing but minding my own business, right? So how is this different in the rape scenario when this couple doesn't consent and you're saying we're going to force you to do it so that good can come of it? And you could say, hey, bringing in a person to this world, that's a material good, and it reinforces our society, and we should do that because there's some good that's going to come from it. Like, what's the difference between that and having the standard around murdering people for not giving up their money?
Well, I think what before I answer the question, can you give? I just want to see where you're coming from. Can you give examples of how refusing to pay taxes could lead to your murder
Oh,
by the government?
100%. Dude, that's such a smart question, dude. That is a question that nobody wants to ask, because people very much like tracing that sort of, when we talked about government and tracing back from the arrest to when they started stealing your money. People don't like to think about what happens if you refuse, if you disagree and mean it. Sure, like the government says you owe me money, this tax money you haven't paid, and let's say I'm refusing to pay it. They're going to start with what? Sending some letters, right? They're going to send you a naughty letter, like you owe us this money, and now there's penalties and interest, and you owe, and they'll keep escalating. And at some point, there's going to be guys with guns that show up at your house or your place of business or whatever. Like they will show up. And what are they going to do? I'm actually have you walk through this. You're a smart kid. Like what happens next when they're knocking on my door and I'm just sitting there? I'm sitting in my chair and I'm watching I don't know, Fox News on television, as I always do. What happens next if I'm just like, leave me alone? I just want to exist peacefully in my property. Like, what is the next step?
They'll take you by force.
Well, hold on a second. I don't want to be taken by force. I want to just be left alone. And also, let's be real specific about actions. Like, walk me through, like, literally what happens if I'm not answering my door. I'm just like, no, thank you. Not interested. I just want to be left alone. What is the next step in the escalation?
I think they'll try to talk you into it. And if that doesn't work, then they'll threaten you, and then after the threats, then the action they'll take action.
Yeah, let's be real clear, man. What actions?
Probably taking you against your will.
No, 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 no. I'm not letting you get out of it this easy, man. Like, what specific actions are these people going to do?
Throw you in jail.
No, 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 no.
Sorry.
Let me set the scene. Let's pretend you're a movie director, and here I am. I'm sitting in my lounger watching Fox News, want to be left alone, and there's some men with guns outside of my door, and I'm not answering, and I'm like, go away, fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. Specifically, what did they do next?
Break down the door.
Oh yeah, yeah. They break
Yeah.
down my door. They break down my door.
Trespass. Yeah.
Probably throw flashbang grenades in my own house, probably shoot my dog, which is what the feds love to do. And then they're going to have what? They're going to have guns pointed at me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if that same action was done by a criminal gang, let's say I'm in Chicago, and you've seen those videos where they try to kick down someone's door.
Yeah.
What do I have a right to do to those people?
What do you have a right to do?
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's kicking down my door with guns, and they want to come into my property. What do I have a natural right to do?
To defend yourself.
Do I have the same right when the cops come?
I guess not.
I disagree. I think absolutely you do. Now, question is, do they believe that you have the right to defend yourself? Because this is what I always get when I go down this thought experiment. It's always, well, yeah, they showed up at my house and they threatened me, and then they bashed down my door, they shot my dog, they dropped flashbang grenades. And then I say, well, what happens if I am inside with a gun and I start shooting these people? And it's like, eventually the way this scenario plays out is eventually there's enough of them show up and they end up killing me somehow. And then they will say, and I will say, okay, well then I've been murdered, and instantly the statist mind kicks in, this indoctrination from elementary school, and it's like, well, you just assaulted a police officer. I'm like, hold on a second. How could I possibly assault somebody who attacked me, who broke down the door of my private property and literally attacked me? How can that possibly be assault or murder? Like it isn't. It's self-defense, right? Like if you swap out, and this is where logic is so important. Are you familiar with Aristotle's laws of logic at all?
No.
Learn those. They're super important for critical thinking. But one of them is called the law of identity. And that is A equals A. Like a human being is a human being. And so you can't have, there's a couple of them. There's the law of identity, there's the law of non-contradiction, there's the law of excluded middle. These are like the basis of logic. And so if A equals A, Matthew and Brent, we are both category human being. And ethics must be universalized. Murder, rape, theft, assault, it has to be universalized. You don't get to have magical extra rights to act with opposite ethics and be evil just because you work for a fake entity called government and you wear a badge and a costume. Like that doesn't give you this right. It doesn't flip the morals and the ethics on their head. So does this change your perspective at all?
So, to be clear, I am not advocating whatsoever for, government threats and, you know, I guess kidnapping because of taxes. I'm opposed to the income tax. I'm opposed to most taxes. But I don't know if that necessarily speaks on the validity of government, because I mean, look, taxes are a big issue, but I think that we can solve it. And I think just for a long time that we haven't. I think with willpower we can solve it, and I think for a long time we haven't, cracked the code on it. I guess. I mean, I'm trying to put this into a way it can make sense, but I mean, I'm not advocating for being forced to give up your money at gunpoint. I want to work around that. That's my position on this. So.
Yeah, which is why I think you and I are going to end up in exactly the same spot. I think you're just a little bit behind me, and I've been doing this a long time. But I think the answer you're looking for is called the free market, man. Like if you want a service, you want to have protection services, have competing companies like we do for everything else in our life. Think about everything else that we do, that we trust to these private companies. Do you really honestly believe that if you had a free market with competition, they're fighting for your dollars, they want to provide you the highest quality service with the lowest cost, with multiple different plans available for people, that could not outcompete an incompetent, evil monopoly? I can't see a way in which it could possibly be any worse than what we're getting today. Like I don't know if you know the Supreme Court decision that says police actually have no duty to protect you. Are you aware of that?
I'm not actually.
Check it.
What decision was that?
I don't remember the decision. Let me look it up real quick. I will. So let me find this real quick. So that is two Supreme Court decisions: DeShaney versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services in 1989, and Town of Castle Rock versus Gonzalez in 2005. And what they said, the Supreme Court ruled that the police basically are there to enforce whatever they feel like. So if there's they want to collect revenue, if they're going to enforce edicts and ordinances, whatever, it's their discretion. And in the event you're being attacked, a police officer has zero duty to protect you and your family or anyone else. They can just walk away and say, not my problem. In a free market, if a company was offering that service and they said, we have no duty to protect, and the other company says, we'll protect you, who are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one that says we will 100% ironclad guarantee protect you. And so I really struggle with this thing. Like we have to have this government. There's got, for some reason, I don't understand why you have to have a monopoly. Monopolies are always bad. They provide terrible service because there's no incentive to compete. They're always more expensive. It's like going to the DMV. You have no choice. We have this experiment, right? Like we can go get your driver's license and it takes fucking 4 hours and they can be rude to you. I mean, there's memes about it. It's like The Simpsons, like Selma and Patty worked at the DMV. And it was so true. That's why it resonated with people because like there's no incentive. And when there's no incentive to satisfy your customers, you're going to provide a terrible service. And I think that applies to the military too. The military does a shit job. They don't protect anything. They're not defending anything. They're attacking countries. They're going overseas, and it's been this way for decades and decades. They're making people rich. DoD contractors. This entire military industrial complex is becoming insanely wealthy while everybody else is becoming less safe and poorer because of it. And I'm like, hey, man, like, I don't understand this iron grip where people just have to hold on to this idea of government. Like, we need this so much. These guys, yeah, they're all crooks. Yeah, they're evil. Yeah, we can see all the filthy things that they're doing. And people still cling to it, right? And I think that for me, this is what's frustrating, and maybe I've got additional insight because I'm so old, man. I'm 50 years old this year, and I've been paying attention closely since I was like your age. Like I said, I started off being this person that really paid attention to politics when I was very young. I was like in junior high school. And I'm telling you, from watching this, man, like I don't see any compelling argument for having a giant monopoly that can murder you for peaceful activities, being in charge of the most important services in our life. What do I got wrong?
So, to go back to the Supreme Court decision, I was not aware of those. I think that's very wrong. But the beauty of a republic is that that's not set in stone. There is a possibility for it to change. But to go to your latter statement about you know governments versus free markets. I mean, I am a capitalist. I 100% believe in free market economy. The issues I have with anarcho-capitalism, for example, is that what what would stop if we lived in an anarcho-capitalist society? What is stopping big corporations, for example, from not, what's stopping them from not protecting you, or what's stopping them from
That's so easy. That is so easy, man. Like they want your money. This is where capitalism has such a benefit and head and shoulders benefit above monopolies provided by governments is the fact that they actually care about your money. Their greed is weaponized in your favor. The fact that you've got 7 companies that all want your business and they're competing with each other and they'll slit each other's throat. If you haven't noticed, when company A makes a mistake, company B is jumping all over and they're going to tell you all about why this company sucks, how they screwed up, and why we're better. Right. And if you have the ability to cancel your service, with police, I can't cancel my service. It's like, hey, like, I don't want this. Please, let me stop paying for it. I'll protect myself if I want to. That's not an option. They're going to steal your money. And you can't switch between providers. Well, I would love to have just a myriad of competition. The free market is such a miracle, and just government cannot replicate the genius of the free market and the ability to update. So this is a problem with government, right? When you have a monopoly providing something, and especially when you have entrenched personal interests, right? There's these police unions and there's all this structure and there's this organization around it and people got these pensions and there's all these, ancillary businesses that are making money off of them. Like the prison, the whole system that provides the laundry and the meals and the security and like the guards, and there's unions. That whole industry that pops up, that's a leech, it's a giant parasite, doesn't want to be updated. Whereas a capitalist offering, they are there to provide the highest quality service at the lowest cost. They're all about efficiency, right? They want to keep things as lean as possible. They want to take as much money as they can from you with the most efficient operation. And also, like I said, they know, looking over their shoulder, that somebody's always out to get them. Someone's always trying to underbid them, undercut them. And that pressure is what provides for innovation, whereas government is just stagnant. Like when has government changed? Other than for the worse, in the last 30 years, like nothing changes, nothing gets better, nothing improves, and that's because there's so much vested interest baked into the system. There's so many people sucking on the teat, and that are just parasites on the system. And look what's happened to us. I mean, your generation is screwed, kid. Like you're not going to be able to buy a home. Like everything, the currency is inflated away. We're getting poorer as a society. We're getting sicker. We're getting fatter. Like everything government touches turns to shit, which is why I just can't fathom somebody being like, yeah, but we just gotta hold on, guys. It reminds me like on that live stream we were on the X Space. I was saying like it's like a stripper with daddy issues. Like, and you being like, and she's got a cocaine habit. And you're like, I can fix her. And it's like all the signs are saying you can't fix her, man. And I think it's a bitter pill to swallow. I get it. Like it took me a while to come to terms with it too, but I haven't found anybody who's been able to convince me that she's worth fixing. It's we're at the end of the rope, man. This empire is about to implode. And the question I have is like, what comes next? I don't think we're getting much longer here. Like we're at $40 trillion in debt, and we're adding a new $1 trillion almost every 60 days. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously on the wrong track. But the reason that I would hold on to the idea of government and the institution um, is that if we were in an anarchy, you know, what I mean, I don't think a true anarchy can actually exist because, I mean, it's human nature for someone to rise up and take power. I mean, you can make the same argument with communism, for example, because the Communist Manifesto says that the end goal is a stateless, classless society, and it's very clear that anytime communism has ever um, been in effect in a nation, that end goal is never reached. Because a stateless society, in my mind, cannot exist because someone's still going to rise to power. So, for example, if we did not have a government in place, we were an anarcho-capitalist society, and companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Fidelity still existed, right? Um, we know, I mean, I'm sure you can be in agreement that those companies are obviously evil and they have their hands in a lot of things, right?
Percent.
So what would I mean, what is stopping them from not taking even more control? Because again, I mean, they're able to take control within a government, but if there's no government, then what's stopping them from just taking control altogether or establishing a new government? Because obviously, I mean, society is full of sheeps. I mean, we can both agree on that.
For sure.
And it's a shame that critical thinking is pretty much at an all time low. So if we were to go into an anarchy like now, for example, I'm not convinced that a majority of our society would resist companies like BlackRock, right? I think that if we were to go into an anarchy, that BlackRock would manipulate them, other companies would, and we would end up with something worse than what we have now.
And that's a valid concern, right? But I think you have a couple of things flipped. And so BlackRock and Vanguard, they are creations of government, right? Do you know how corporations, like what a corporation is legally?
Enlighten me.
Okay, so a corporation is a statist construct, right? It is a government construct. And what it means is that government will shield people, the business owners, from the actions of their decisions, and will also put their thumb on the scale, and they will provide regulations that will help enrich these corporations, right? But a corporation is essentially a shield. Have you heard of something called an LLC before? You know what it stands for?
I do not.
It is a limited liability corporation. And you know what? The government steps in and says, we're going to limit the amount of liability that the actual owners of the company bear. So they will, it's like the whole thing with Wall Street, where you have private profits and socialized losses, right? So it's a way that the government is erecting a barrier between consumers who might be harmed by the actions of these business owners, and the business owners. And it's gross, and it's not a free market thing. It wouldn't exist in an anarchic society, right? So corporations are legal fiction, essentially, where you like. If I have a hand here and I put on this glove called the corporation, I go punch you in the face, and it's like anything happens, the government comes and they put the glove in jail, and my hand goes off free. Like that's the whole function of a corporation. And to answer your other question, how you stop that from happening, or what would stop a bad actor in a free market from doing that? Number one is that consumers hate that shit. One of the greatest things about the free market is the only way that you can enrich yourself is by delighting your customers, by being better than the other guy, by offering a better service at a lower cost than the other guy, right? And so that's a consumer benefit. And that fickle consumer that's always like, screw you, I'm going to go somewhere else. Like that is what keeps those people as honest as possible. I'm not saying corruption can't exist in the free market. I'm not saying that price fixing can't, like all these things have happened, right? And I'm not saying this is a utopia. What I'm saying is, a lot of the criticisms of free markets can actually be flipped, and we can point right back to government and say, yeah, but we have that today. Like the things you're worried about are actually happening today. And I think it's easier because in our world, I think the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, whoever is pulling the strings, because the government doesn't really run anything. These are puppets that are operating at the behest of these billionaires and these large corporations. They have the centralized power now. So if you give them that ring of power, all they have to do is vote it for themselves. Like I can just vote, and then everybody has to obey or I kill them. And that's the much easier way to grab power than in a decentralized world where you have to compete with other other companies or other market entities to delight their customers, right? I think that it becomes much harder to, by the way, and there will be an aggregation of resources. Like hierarchies are natural. This is where communists get wrong. You call that, why doesn't communism work? Well, we can have a stateless society, but you can't have an egalitarian society. You can't equalize for outcomes because human beings are not equal. There's always, and this is one of the things that Jordan Peterson is amazing on, talks about dominance hierarchies, or he talks about competence hierarchies. There's always going to be somebody at the top. And there's a Pareto principle, which means that, the top is going to accrue all of the wealth all of the time. And there's no real way to get around that. That's just like a function of human nature. The best in everything sort of aggregates towards the top, and everything's like this pyramid down below it. So it's like an 80-20 rule. If you look at the size of stars, you look at the height of the trees, like it's this tiny percentage have all of this, and everyone else has, the leftovers. And that's something you can't fix. I think the communists are trying to solve it, but communism doesn't solve it. You cannot equalize for outcomes. And I think in a free market, you have to let the winners and losers happen as they do. But that's not coming without problems. Society becomes unstable when you have a bunch of people a tiny amount of people get all the resources, and everyone gets very minimal resources. But again, we have that today. That's exactly what we see in our system now. I think this is a function of nature, and I don't think there's really a way to get around it. Some people have proposed thought experiments and like, hey, if you just took all the wealth in the world and you evenly distributed it to everybody, in like 5 years, it would be all back in the same hands. That's just the way things work, and I don't think there's a way around it. What are your thoughts?
Um, what what would stop them from instituting a new government?
That there's nothing, right? So this is the thing that is really important. I'm glad you called this out. Is that without an intentional move towards a free society, you're always going to be at the risk of another government popping up. And I don't think there's a way around it. People oftentimes just want to be taken care of. And this is what frustrates me about America now. And I've often said it, and people get mad at me, but I'm like, hey, Americans hate freedom. Like liberty in America right now are like, we're mortal enemies. There's like 5 people in the world who actually want freedom or in America, and everyone else is just like, gimme, gimme, gimme. I want freebies. I don't want to work. I want to just, and then there's this sort of class envy thing where they point fingers at people and you shouldn't have this. And in a lot of ways, they're right. It's very easy to manipulate people into having a politician, a Gavin Newsom type, swoop in, slick suit and be like, hey, I got this thing, man. Just let's form a government and we're going to be good. I don't think there's an answer for that. People are going to be lured to that because it provides this sort of false false solution that sounds really good on paper and people really like this idea, and it's very easy to sort of sway people that direction. So I don't have a good answer for that one. Well, I guess we'd cross that bridge if we ever get to a free society, but we're so far away from that now. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I think I would disagree with the idea that that people naturally dislike freedom. I think that
Tell me
I
more.
th- I think that humanity, I think we do instinctively desire freedom, but I think the issue is that we have been, we get brainwashed, right? I mean, we get brainwashed into, believing that we have to rely on welfare. We get brainwashed into, believing that we have to have a authoritarian way of doing things. I don't think that humans instinctively dislike freedom. I think they want it, but I think, especially in today's political landscape, it's very difficult to try and advocate for it, And I mean, the country's been very authoritarian for, I'd say, a century, you know.
Let's say at least since 1913. We can at least put that
Yes,
flag in the ground,
yes.
right?
Yeah, and when we, like, for example, the Federal Reserve, right? I think it's very difficult for people to imagine a country without a central bank like the Federal Reserve. We've had it since 1913, right? And I think it's difficult for people to kind of conceptualize a country without it because we've grown accustomed to relying on it, right? Income tax, for example. I mean, we've had it since 1913 or 14 or whatever. I think we've grown accustomed to not be able to conceptualize how we would be able to function without it. And I think that's how we get. I think that's how people are kind of brainwashed in a sense to, I guess, dislike freedom. Because I don't think they, deep down, I don't think they dislike it. I just think maybe because of societal pressure, maybe because of just uh, not being able to think a different way, um, that people just go with a more authoritarian way of doing things.
Yeah, I don't think it's brainwashing, man. I think what it is people like to talk about freedom, particularly Americans. It's all sloganeering. It's, oh, liberty and justice for all. Like, I love my freedom. They love it in a hedonistic way. They love it in. Have you heard of the marshmallow test before?
No.
Okay, this is a really awesome thing, a study they did on children. And it was a very high predictor of success in life when they measured these kids when they're 3 years old and they would put a marshmallow on the table in front of them, those big Stay Puft marshmallows, and they would say, all right, you can eat this marshmallow now, or if you wait 5 minutes, I'll come back and I'll give you two marshmallows. And the kids that were able to defer gratification and wait for the second marshmallow actually attract them throughout their lifetime. They had higher incomes, they were way more successful. Like it was a really important metric. And so I think Americans fail the marshmallow test is that they want their marshmallow now. When you talk about freedom, it's like, I want my rights. I want to be able to do what I want. I want to go where I want. That's what they want. They want the feel good rights. But when the rubber meets the road, freedom actually has got two sides of the coin. One is the rights, one's the responsibilities. And people don't like responsibility in America now. They don't. When you're like, oh, I get freedom, but I mean, I have to pay for this myself. Like what? I have to pay a bill for protection services. I have to pay a bill for like it's my responsibility to take care of my family. It's my responsibility to do these things. No, I want the government to do that. I want those other people to do that part while I do the hedonistic, the good side of freedom that I really feel that feels good for me. I don't want to do the marshmallow test. That's what I see. I see people that just hate responsibility, and therefore they would rather turn over their rights to the government. And you've seen it erode over time. You watch this, like we just keep getting less and less and less and less. And then the holdouts now, which were like the Republicans, really, who were pushing for freedom, they just like now we're like, oh, let's have some hate speech legislation and let's, this whole Donald Trump administration is a case study in the last vestiges of people who should care about freedom just rolling over and being like, screw it, man. Like, just let the government take all the rights. Yeah, send the feds into the cities. Yeah, let's send ICE in. Yeah, let's be authoritarian everywhere. Like there's nobody left, man. Like, I think everybody is like, it's really sad. I don't say this with any sort of like pleasure at all, but I just see Americans as just literally hating, viscerally hating anything resembling actual freedom.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with what we're seeing with this current administration, I'm very disappointed. And Trump campaigned like Ron Paul, but he governs like Lindsey Graham, and that's kind that's kind of the issue, right? And I think why the MAGA base has not called this out is because Trump's a populist, and I think populism at its root um, manipulates you um, into not thinking critically about policy, ideologies, politics, economics, whatever. And look, like Trump campaigned on lowering the deficit, working to pay off the debt, and cutting spending. Have we seen that? No, we have not.
LOL.
Yeah, but I don't. I don't. I think that people, because of populism, they got behind this candidate, and they don't even realize that that he changed. And I think it's because
Sorry to interrupt, but he changed. What did he change? I want to hear more about this.
all right. Okay, maybe change is not the right word. I'm sure he's probably been the same way always, but based on his campaign promises compared to his administrative work, right? And I don't think people recognize that the shift in. I don't think people recognize the how what he campaigned on is contradictory to what he actually does, right? Um,
Who he is at his core, I would argue.
yeah, yeah, I would probably agree with that. Um, but I think people got manipulated. I mean, you look at influencers like Benny Johnson or people at the Daily Wire or Laura Loomer. I mean, it like one week, Trump could say that there's no Epstein files and there's no, there's nothing there, and then like the next week they'll be praising him for something else. But it's like they forgot that what he did previously, and I think that's part of what populism does to people is that it just makes you it makes you put on rose colored glasses whenever you're looking at them, and they just forget that you know the contradictory policies and whatnot. So
Yeah, that's been the dismaying thing for me about this term. And by the way, I predicted all of this. Like, I watched his first term. I knew exactly who he was, and I warned people. I was like, "Hey, you're electing him as a lame duck president. Like, he's got no other term, and you're actually going to see the real Trump, who was sort of like guarding himself in the first term because he was trying to get reelected, and it's going to be really ugly." And I've been very disappointed to see a lot of people who continue to just excuse make. Like, oh, he's on our team, therefore, whatever he says, I mean, I was shocked because I've been pretty active on Twitter and I've talked to a lot of people, and they were all on my side. I'm like, hey, fucking Epstein files tomorrow. Like, drop them, like all of them. Redact the victims' names. That's it. Release them. And they're like, yeah, yeah. And everyone's like clamoring for the files. And as soon as he called them a hoax, and all of a sudden, these people that I've been talking to the whole time, like, yeah, they're a hoax. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
what are you talking about?
yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's I regret supporting him. I mean, obviously, I wasn't old enough to vote whenever the 2024 election happened, but I mean, I wouldn't say diehard Trump, but I was very supportive. And it's very disappointing to see what happened. And honestly, looking back at it, I should have known from the start that it was not going to be, what he campaigned. And my first red flag, like my first real red flag that I caught on to was him endorsing Mike Johnson for speaker.
Boy.
Like I mean, it's ridiculous. Like literally 2 weeks before Trump or before the speaker election, he tried to get that spending bill passed, and the paper was literally this thick. And then, like 2 weeks after that, Trump's like, like, oh, Mike Johnson's on our side. He's come around. No, he hasn't. Because then in February, they passed a CR, which didn't change anything. It was still Biden spending. And then we get the one big beautiful bill, and it's even worse. So that should have been that was my first red flag, and I was very disappointed. And the rhetoric we heard on Twitter, and I think this is because of populism. Everyone was saying like, oh, if Trump gets to pick his own team, if he wants Mike Johnson, it's Mike Johnson. Okay, well that's not how the separation of powers works. Okay, he doesn't get to choose who the speaker is. He can endorse the speaker 100%, but it's not, what he says goes. All right, this is a separate branch of government. He can give his opinion, but he doesn't have an actual role in picking it, right? Again, it was just very disappointing to see that everyone was like, we need Mike Johnson because Trump said so. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And again, even looking at it from an outsider's perspective, it makes no sense. Mike Johnson's the exact opposite of what Trump campaigned on. Reauthorized the FISA courts. He pretty much gave Biden whatever he needed, and I mean, I don't understand why people didn't see that. And again, I think that's just the effects of populism. And obviously, with Trump in office now, we can see that they're both very aligned, But it's just disappointing that people cannot see the contradictions. So that
Well,
was my
some
first red flag.
Yeah, well, and by the way, don't feel too bad about yourself. Like number one, you're super young, man. Like you haven't seen as much as some of us old folks. Uh, and also, I will say this: the PR campaign around this election was pristine, right? When you have, I think Elon was a huge driver. He was talking, like he was quoting Rothbard, and he had Ron Paul responding to his tweet saying, "Yeah, let's go do
Yeah.
this. We're gonna do people got whipped up into this fervor, and at the whole time, I was like rolling my eyes, like, guys, this is not going to end well." Because I knew that the Elons and the Ron Pauls of the world and the Masseys of the world are just fundamentally diametrically opposed to who Trump is and what he believes at his core. He's a communist, essentially. Or at least a socialist. Like he's
Yeah.
the hardest left. I maintain this. He's the hardest left president in U.S. history. I don't think there's anyone any further to the left. I have a very difficult time. Even thinking of someone like FDR is in that realm, Woodrow Wilson, Abraham Lincoln. There's some tyrannical leftists that we've had throughout our history, and I don't see anybody any worse than him. I just don't.
Um. Yeah, I think economically, he's pretty left, and I think he'd probably be very on point with FDR. Socially, I think is probably a different story. But but yeah, I mean, it. I'm very convinced that he's a socialist. I mean, look, the Department of Commerce bought 10% of Intel.
And they're saying we want more. We want more companies. Let's
It's
go.
ridiculous. It's like who in their right, like any conservative, right? Any conservative out there, like all the ones I named, Laura Loomer, Benny Johnson, anyone from the Daily Wire. How are they not calling that out? I mean, that is textbook socialism. And as a conservative and holding yourself to conservative values, which generally are economically right, how can you be okay or not even call out the fact that the government now owns 10% of the largest chip manufacturer in the country? I mean, it's a travesty.
Or on top of that, you want to talk about the spending, right? So he has increased spending more than any president in U.S. history
Yeah,
by a pretty
yeah,
wide margin. and he's raised taxes more than any president in US history at the same time, and everyone's like, he's economically right. I'm like, what are you talking about? The tariffs alone are insane, and this is one of the things that people don't understand very well, is that, like, no, because the rhetoric is, oh, they pay the tariffs, the foreigners
Yeah.
pay the tariffs. It's like, dude, no, the tariffs are collected by guys with guns at the port of entry. So if you're familiar, we have
Yeah.
these ports of entry where we import all these things, and they're all of that has to be paid by the importer of record. And so these are American companies that are paying all of these tariffs, which are just taxes. And so you've had massive spending, massive increases of taxes, and you have essentially fascism, where we're buying stakes of privately traded companies, and then the way the government's going to do, they're going to put their finger on the scale and they're going to try to juice their investments in whatever company, which you've already seen. Intel's up like 30%,
Yeah.
and they want to expand it. It's like, I don't see anybody any harder left economically than Donald Trump. And ultimately, I think that's the only thing that matters at this stage of our collapse, is the fact that financially the house of cards is coming down. He's destroyed the economy. He's destroyed the currency. I mean, hell, his
Yeah.
first term, he tripled the M2 money supply. That's insane. And then everybody blamed Biden for the inflation crisis. And it's like, guys, you can't triple the money supply and then not have prices go up.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm ranting, but I don't see him as a right president in any way, other than a couple of populist things like, oh, we're going to throw some brown people in alligator Alcatraz and try to kick them out of the country. There's just a couple of like token things that he does to try to appeal to the right folks, and now he's bombing Iran and like being militarily aggressive with Yemen, and I'm not seeing anything right with him at all. It's just like, I see him as just like pure leftism.
Yeah. I mean, Biden obviously did not make the inflation any better. I mean,
For sure.
like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really a climate spending bill, that crippled the economy even more.
Hey,
I
real
mean,
quick, sorry to interrupt, but have you noticed the trend, or like almost like an iron law, that whatever a legislation is named, it's going to do the exact opposite? Like, you can take
yeah.
that to the bank every single time.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people kind of forget that a lot of what made Biden bad started with Trump's last year of his term. Like, the COVID stuff, for example. I mean, again, Operation Warp Speed happened under Trump. He
All
keeps
him.
saying, yeah, he keeps saying that it was like the greatest thing the military has ever done in our nation's history. Like, okay, and then like the lockdowns, the forced masking, that started with him. And
Hmm.
people forget that. And yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to defend him now. I mean, I I admit I fell for I fell for it. I don't think I'll do it again, but it's a shame that other people are falling for it. And the foreign policy is another very disappointing thing um, with them as well. I mean, I was expecting results with Ukraine. I was expecting results with
Day one. I'm gonna have that solved
yeah,
in
oh
day
yeah.
one.
He didn't even say day one. He said he would have it solved as president elect. So, I mean, um, but the foreign policy. I mean, like Iran, for example, he handled it the complete wrong way from the start. Even before he became president, he couldn't say that he wasn't going to go to war with Iran, and then he was like leaving written instructions in case Iran assassinates him. Which I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz,
That
but
was a brilliant takedown. Oh my god,
yeah,
that
I mean,
was.
Tucker called him out. He does not believe that Iran's going to assassinate him. All right, if they actually think that Iran's going to assassinate a sitting president, they would want to take immediate military action. And I'm not talking about like bombing nuclear sites. I mean an actual solution to that issue. But that issue doesn't exist. But anyway, from the start, he was way too soft on Israel. Um, he created this crazy rhetoric about Iran. I don't think that Iran's going to do anything. I mean, they might want to now, and in fact, they did. I mean, maybe people forgot, but whenever we bombed their nuclear sites, they hit us back in our base in Qatar, and people like
Kinda.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
well,
it was clearly a coordinated strike, and it clearly missed the target, and it was clearly advertised in advance. It was just like,
yeah,
hey, we got to show some force. But I get your point. Like, it was an act of
yeah,
aggression in
yeah,
response.
yeah. So, I mean, we're not seeing the peacemaking president that he's made out to be.
Nobel
Um,
Peace Prize, man. Come on, Matt. Nobel Peace Prize.
Jeez. And even with Ukraine, like now he's like I'm pretty sure that the Ukraine situation right now could be way better if they like 3 months ago they didn't start talking about all these natural resource deals with Ukraine. All right, we don't want that. We I don't want anything to do with Ukraine at all. Okay, they're a shit country. All right, they suck. Their government sucks. Zelensky's an idiot. They're run by a bunch of corrupt generals. They're pretty much neo Nazis. I don't want anything to do with them. I do not want to make some natural resource deal with them. But no, the art of the deal in him had to come out, and I think that made the Russia Ukraine thing worse. And I think it pissed Putin off even more than he already was.
It clearly did. And here's my other pitch for the free market. Do you believe that a free market defense company would be sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these foreign countries? Like, do you think that would be a good operating model for them?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't
Assuming,
know.
okay, assuming that their job is to protect you and your family, right? Like this is a defensive operation that we want to protect your property and your person. You want to have some sort of like not national defense because in a free market there wouldn't be a nation per se, but there would be some sort of federation of service providers that somehow defend against whatever type of threats there might be, right? Do you think that they would be just sending money over to Ukraine? Like that's insane. They're
Um,
trying to make a profit. They want to make money. They're trying to and every single bomb that they drop is a negative for them, right? They're incentivized to not deploy munitions. Whereas in the status paradigm, guess what? They love war. They love blowing shit up because if they blow shit up, they got to order more, and then all of those vested interests who are pulling the strings with the DoD contractors, like those people get rich, just soaked in blood and getting rich, and they don't give a shit.
yeah, it's a good point. I think I think it can also depend on where the company's heart is at. It could very well end up to be like a corruption situation. I but I do see where what you're saying. I would probably say that in that scenario, they would be way less likely to send a shitload of money to overseas. So I get what you're saying.
Well, also something important to note, and I know you're young and you may not know this, but the CEO of these companies, like they've got something called fiduciary duty. Have you heard that before? So the fiduciary duty means that it's your responsibility to maximize profits for the shareholders. That you have to do that, and so them doing that would actually be a breach of their fiduciary duty. They could be removed for cause. They would be fired by the board and be replaced with a new CEO. So I think it's very unlikely that someone's just going to send $60 billion to some proxy war halfway around the world. Like it doesn't seem plausible to me at all.
I mean, would it be dependent on who they're selling to? Like if the company, for example, was selling to the foreign nation at war, would it be in their interest to keep funding the war or to keep it going because then the
Well,
Russians
they
fine?
wouldn't be funding it though, right? That if somebody was to sell munitions to other countries, that would be a profit generating exercise, right? Like, hey, it's like you give us money and we're going to give you weapons. That would be an exchange, right? So today, it's like the government essentially either takes cash and just airdrops like a shit ton of cash over to Ukraine, and then they do something with that cash, typically skim a whole bunch off and enrich themselves, and then do a bunch of shady backdoor deals with Israel and these other companies for arms. Which, by the way, have you seen that pipeline where it's like Israel is giving arms to Ukraine, and then Israel comes to America for aid, and we start sending them? It's just a circle, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's kind of the way all that shit works. And just you wouldn't see that in a free market. There's no sense. If you were an arms manufacturer, cool, like you might sell some to this other country and that's fine, but there wouldn't just be giving. They're not just going to give $60 billion worth of missiles to some foreign country. Like, it would be, they pony up with the cash and then you send them the money, and that can go wrong too, right? I'm not claiming there's no problems in the world. Like I said, humans are nothing but
Yeah,
problems. I just
yeah,
don't think you're going to see this sort of perverse incentive that we have now with these countries and these DoD contractors and this foreign aid. It's all dirty, man.
yeah. I mean, it is dirty. I mean, I can see how the dynamic is different when you take the state out of the question. Um, but I don't know. I think I would have to think on that more. So,
It's a complicated subject, man. I would
yeah,
seriously recommend a couple people. So Bob Murphy, do you know who he is?
no.
Bob Murphy and Tom Woods used to have this show called Contra Krugman, where they would sort of counter Paul Krugman's Wall Street Journal article every week, and it was amazing. But Bob Murphy is an economist. He's a libertarian. Actually, he's an anarchist. But he wrote a book called Chaos Theory, and Chaos Theory is beautiful because it talks about exactly what we're talking about, like how a stateless society might function, how these things that the government provides today might be provided in a free market. Another person that's great is David Friedman. Are you familiar with him at all?
No.
So have you heard of Milton Friedman?
Yes.
Chicago school economist, very famous. His son David is an anarchist as well, and he wrote a bunch of books on the exact same subject. So, and I agree, it's very complicated. And this is where people get hung up on free market stuff too. Is that everybody wants all the answers? They want me to tell them exactly how things would operate in a free market. And unfortunately, this is one of our biggest like marketing gotchas, is that you can't do that, right? So trying
Yeah.
to, as a single person, predict the collective brilliance of the free market and how they might solve problems in the future, it's an impossible task. That's like being in 1980 and saying, "Well, hey, what are phones going to be like in 30 years?" Like, we wouldn't have been able to predict iPhones and Androids and like internet shit like that. There's no possible way, and that's kind of the problem that we have. Is like, we can say, start from first principles and work outward and say, yeah, markets are more efficient, and we can make the general arguments, but everybody, before they make the jump, they want to have a status type plan, like a politician would have. Here's my 5-point plan, here's exactly how it's going to work. And anyone who's honest about free markets is going to say, like, can't do that, I'm sorry, we can't provide that. It's almost like trust me bro, which is very unfortunate for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, prior to our you know debate on Twitter, I'd never looked at these issues through an anarchist lens, and I'm glad we're doing this because I think it's very good food for thought to see all perspectives, and I just never considered anarchy. I don't think my position is going to change, but I do. It does raise up a lot of issues, and like taxation, for example, and I think that that looking at it through this lens, we can definitely find solutions that we've never even thought of before. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely look into all those people you're mentioning. So
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it, man, because it just fills out your view. And I think that you're a libertarian now, right? Like, is that what you could classify yourself as?
um,
Or are you like
so
Republican, or what? Where do you land?
okay, I would not. I don't. So you probably can guess this because of my speech about on that X space with Amity. But I don't like party politics at all. I think it's caused very many issues since the first two parties. So I wouldn't classify myself as a Republican or a Democrat or even like a partisan libertarian. Um, but for my ideologies, I would definitely say I'm kind of in between conservative and libertarian. Libertarian in economics and how the government functions, but there's a lot of social issues I'm very conservative on,
Mm.
and that has to do with my religion. So
Got it. So, quick question: how do you conceptualize that? Because I hear this a lot, right? Like people are like, "Well, I'm very fiscally conservative, or I'm fiscally libertarian, but I'm socially conservative." On what issues would you consider yourself conservative, and which of those issues do you feel like I feel strongly enough that I want somebody murdered if they go against my beliefs?
Um, I would never want anybody murdered for going against my beliefs. I mean,
Well,
I believe.
hold on, because I want to be really clear here because we've talked about this early on.
Uh-huh.
Is that every law is essentially the opinion of some politician backed up with a death threat. So if you say like I want a law, that means necessarily that you're okay with murder. And so with that like context, like what things fall in that category for you that you would want a law against? You know, because a lot of times the conservatives like, well, gay marriage or drugs. I want drugs prohibited, or I like. Yeah, there's these lists of things. What are those things for you?
Immigration. I mean, that necessarily doesn't have to do with my faith, but politically, I'm
That's a
against
hot
illegal.
button one. That's a hot button one,
uh,
especially with all the ICE stuff going on.
yeah, woke culture. I don't believe in like silencing like individuals from believing in that. I mean, like you can believe what you want. I don't care. I mean, I genuinely do not care what you think. All right, as long as it doesn't pose a physical threat to me or anybody else, I don't care. I don't believe, however, that the government should um, promote those ideologies. Some other issues: abortion. I'm anti-abortion. I'm pro-life, very much so.
So,
And
so real quick, so to double click on that, are you like a Ron Paul abortion person who's like, I'm against it, but I also don't want the government in charge of this? Or are you like, I want a law. I want this banned.
uh, I I want a law to ban it. I so I do understand that there needs to be some exceptions, mainly with relation to minors and like rape and stuff. But it is very.
Interesting. I want to double click on that real quick. Why the exceptions? This is an interesting one because I've talked to a lot of Christians and religious people from various faiths that are against abortion because it's like, well, that child, that preborn child, has got a right to life like anybody else, regardless of how they came into the world. And so, why would an exception be granted in any case if the claim is like
um
this is actually a person and this is actually murder?
yeah. um Look, abortion is a very hot topic. It's a very decisive issue.
I
um
hadn't noticed.
you know whether it's rape, incest, or otherwise, it's still murder. I'm 100% with that. When it comes to exceptions, I mean, like if a 12-year-old ends up pregnant, all right, that the emotional weight of having to for a 12-year-old to bear a child, I don't know if I can force a 12-year-old, for example, to have to do that. Um, when it comes to rape, now like so I'm still like obviously I'm still young. I'm still developing my positions. I haven't made it in the real world yet. So but I think as of right now, I mean, what people don't understand is that the rape cases, because of the trauma, it is a lot less likely than people realize. But when it comes to the exception, I think with what I as of right now, I would make an exception for it, because again, I mean, rape is a very, I mean, it's a very disgusting thing. I mean, it's very evil. I mean, it's important to point out that two wrongs don't make a right, and I mean, I if you abort your child and because you're raped, I mean that doesn't fix the trauma necessarily, but I mean it. I don't know. I,
Hey man, this is a
I know,
complicated topic. I don't fault you
I
at
know.
all for
Yeah,
developing these positions, and I don't know if you'll
yeah.
get to the end of your life without getting them sorted out.
Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, very much against abortion. 100% believe it's murder. But I mean, like I firmly believe in the exceptions for children. Whenever it comes to adults, I mean, I don't know. I'm still developing those opinions, I guess. But a good person to listen to is I can't remember her last name, but I think her first name's like Christian. Like and she was a rape victim, and she gave birth to her child, who was a result of rape. And she does do a good job at explaining that a good can come out of it. I mean, you're like a child, is not inherently evil, and getting aborting the child isn't going to fix the issue at hand, I guess. Again, I'm still, it's a very
Yeah,
it's a very difficult topic.
it is very difficult, and this is where I love these topics because it's very similar to the constitutional issue, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
can we murder people? Is that the way we're going to organize society? And it's like, if you truly believe that preborn child is a human being and has the exact same rights as everybody else, it becomes a tricky situation. You get in this utilitarian phase where, like, well, do we respect all the life? And it's very difficult too. This is where Ron Paul and I agree, is that it shouldn't be illegal. But I think both of us are about as anti-abortion as you possibly can get. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's an absolute tragedy when it happens. It's awful, but it's also very complicated from a health perspective. He's a doctor. He actually was an OBGYN, delivered all these babies. It's very difficult from a woman's health perspective. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong where the only solution actually is an abortion. That's very difficult to
Yeah.
manage, and it's also policing too. There's another aspect of this, which is policing it. Is that if you say you want to make abortion illegal, then now you're saying, well, now the abortion pill, the Plan B or whatever it's going to be, that has to be illegal, and then you open up the government prying into all of your personal, matters. If you're going to start, it's like the drug war. You're trying to regulate a chemical or a compound. There's no end to that, and so it's one of those tough things where I don't think anybody's got a great solution, myself included. I just happen to be very much aligned with Ron Paul, which is like, it's a tragedy,
Yeah.
it's awful, it's a horrible thing that's happening. But also, I think that the negatives associated with trying to give the government a monopoly to police that are worse than the outcomes naturally.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think that I can ever advocate for abortion to be legal. I mean, obviously, I talked about the exceptions, but outside those exceptions, I don't think I can, in good faith, advocate for legal abortion. So
It's a hard one, man. Like,
yeah.
that's probably the hardest topic politically. So we
Hmm.
just delved into the most explosive waters possible. But no, I think
Yeah.
that's fine. I don't think anyone's got it figured out, and it's
Hmm.
definitely a tough topic. So,
Yeah.
um, a little bit over time, man. But I've really enjoyed talking to you. Like seriously, dude.
I
Like,
enjoyed it too.
you're such a smart kid, and you're like I said, you remind me very much of myself when I was younger. So I hope I've at least given you some food for thought. I've really enjoyed the
Yeah.
back and forth, and you've given me some things to think about. And just best of luck to you, man. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on X?
So my X account is Matthew Hunt the second. The second is two uppercase I's. That's where you can find me on X. Uh, I mean, I don't have like I said at the start, I don't have a podcast or anything, or a blog or whatever. So I mean, mainly I just comment on politics and stuff on there. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, keep shit posted, man. I've been enjoying watching your stuff, and I'm sure we'll connect in the future, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.